Ah, the mic boom arm, ubiquitous on the desks of all our favorite content creators. We all decide that we need one at some point along our journeys toward creator immortality. But which kind should you get? The classic, high-profile, scissor style, exemplified by the Rode PSA-1, or a low-profile arm, popularized by Elgato with the Wave Arm LP? Good question. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each kind of mic boom arm while we take a closer look at this particular low-profile arm, the Maono BA92. Maono did send me the BA92 for the purpose of making this video, but they do not have any editorial control over the content of this video, nor will they see it before you do. Before we get to a comparison between these two types of boom arms, I do want to give a little bit of detail about the Maono BA92. The Maono BA92 is a low-profile boom arm designed to sit low on your desk, obviously, possibly slipping underneath your monitor. The arms freely rotate 360 degrees, while the second arm can be angled upward almost to 90 degrees. One of my favorite features is the ball mount, which we'll talk about later, but it makes attaching and adjusting your microphones simple and super flexible, and means you can attach other things like cameras. Maono says it can hold microphones up to 2 kilograms, and we'll test out various microphones later in the video to see how it does. It is very similar in design to the Elgato Wave Arm LP, which I've never used, but it looks very close. But there is one significant change that Maono has made to the design, and overall I think it's a improvement over Elgato's design. And maybe you can spot it if you are familiar with Wave Arm LP. The Maono BA92 has moved the XLR cable channel to the bottom of the arms, whereas on the Elgato, it's on the top. This is an improvement in a couple different ways. A, it's cleaner looking. You don't have any gaps or seams on the top of the arm, and also, obviously, the cable is not routed in the top, so there's no hole for the cable to go into. So overall, I just think it looks nicer. And B, the Elgato Wavearm has magnetic cable covers, and I've seen people show or complain in their videos that those cable covers have a tendency to pop off as you move the arm around. The Maono has plastic covers that basically slide in and clip into place. So anyway, after using this for about 3 weeks, I've not really had any issues with those cable covers coming off. The downside is it's obviously a little bit more of a process to get the cable into the arm than it would be if it was just on top. So it's not hard, but it just takes a little bit more effort. You basically just disassemble the whole thing or don't assemble it in the first place, lay the arms upside down, route the cable into it. Once you get the cable in there, then you can reassemble the arm and you're good to go. I think for 99% of people out there, that's gonna be fine. You do it once, you set it up, and you forget about it. The other thing to be aware of with this design is with the cable going in underneath, you have to be cognizant of this cable. And since this is a low profile arm, if you have it too low, it might get in your way, like of your keyboard or your mouse, you might be hitting the XLR cable. Before we move on to the comparison between the classic scissor style and the low profile, let's talk about how much this Maono BA92 can hold. Obviously it can hold the Earthworks Ethos, no problem, but let's take a look at some of the heavy hitters I have on hand and just make sure that it's up to the job. Another bonus of having a ball mount is it makes attaching the mic to it very simple, because you can just loosen this and then freely rotate the end of the ball mount to basically just unscrew the mic. 790 grams. A couple other beef boys I have, the Rode PodMic USB. That is 905 grams. I think we're good. Push it up. All right, no problem with the PodMic USB. You can also see, obviously, when I take off the mic, this holds its tension. It doesn't flop up or anything like that. That's something that you have to be cognizant of with scissor style boom arms. When they don't have anything to hold the tension, they might murder you. Here I have the Rode NT1 5th gen with its massive shock mount assembly. Let's see how much this weighs. 994 grams. You have to really make sure you tighten that ball mount so the mic doesn't rotate. I think we got it. Push that up. Holds it no problem. Doesn't sag. Nice. What you would need is an adapter to take this from like 3/8 to 1/4 inch thread. And you could probably pick something like that up on Amazon or B&H or Adorama pretty easily. And I know I have one somewhere, just can't find it. Got my trusty A7S III with 35mm f1.8. Okay, this is the heaviest. So this is 1,106 grams plus the weight of this magic arm. So that is actually pretty cool. Low profile or traditional mic boom arm, which is better? Really just depends on your setup and what is going to facilitate the microphone being in the optimal position, what's on your desk, where you anticipate trying to put the boom arm, like how you're going to clamp it to the desk. I obviously can't see all the desk setups in the world, so those are just some things to think about. Obviously, if you have a lot of stuff that you need to come over the top of, then the low profile arm is not going to be for you. The benefits of the low profile arm, as maybe you can tell, is it's just a little bit cleaner in terms of the look. If you are on camera, it doesn't get in the way of the shot as much, or it's less of a thing up around your head. The other thing is, if you're looking at a screen, if you're doing conference calls, or maybe you're a game streamer, then this is also less obstructive of your view of the screen. So it has the benefit of being sort of clear for the camera view and also clear for your view of the monitor. Other benefit is that it sort of gets out of the way and folds up a little bit more discreetly than the scissor style or the traditional style. This one is always going to be somewhat tall, blocking things. I don't know. But I'll show in B-roll how much this really just folds up, and it sort of stays at the level of your desk a little bit more. So maybe it doesn't interrupt the feng shui of your life as much as something like this would. Another benefit of the low profile is that it rotates it 2 axes. So obviously it's going to rotate at the base, but it also rotates at the midpoints. So let's talk about the classic style real quick. This one is only going to rotate at the base and potentially at the end where the microphone is, but that's probably going to depend on the boom arm that you are using. These obviously have more ability to change the height of the boom. You can move the arm up and down at the bottom, you can move it up and down at the midpoint, and you can move it up and down at the end. This one is freeing your arms and your hands at the desk surface a lot more than the low profile one, but you still have to be cognizant of moving your hands and arms around where the mic is. You have much more stuff sort of at the level of your face, which could be obscuring to the camera, and obviously it's going to be more potentially obscuring to your screen if you need to look at that. If you do a lot of voiceovers and maybe you like to stand, then this may accommodate you in that regard, depending on how big this is, how much it can reach. You may be able to stand and use this one, where obviously you couldn't do that with the low profile, unless you have a standing desk, obviously. Let's wrap up this video by talking about the pros and cons of the Maono BA92, specifically so you can understand if it's going to be a good alternative to the other low profile arms on the market. Starting with the cons, the overall build quality of this is really nice. It's mostly aluminum and metal. The little tightening knob on the ball mount is plastic, and it doesn't feel all that great. The cable covers are also plastic, and they have little plastic latches, which are definitely potential points of failure. It's good that they slide into place as opposed to you having to push them into place and then also pull them off, because I've noticed on some monitor arms that I've used in the past, plastic cable covers with latches, sometimes those latches can be pretty brittle and they just snap off. So that would just be a point of concern for me with this design. It does come with an Allen wrench to adjust the tension of this middle point to lift and lower the arm. That's a pretty common choice, I think, for mic boom arms, but it is something that you'll have to keep track of. Unless you just have a lot of Allen wrenches lying around, you'll have to find the proper one to adjust the tension of the arm. I've already mentioned the potential conflicts with your hands depending on the slack of the cable, so I don't need to rehash all of that. And also just the fact that having the cable routed underneath is a little bit more of a process to install than it would be if it were on top. Okay, the pros. I love the ball joint. It makes positioning all kinds of microphones super easy. Some mics have limited range of motion depending on how they're mounted. This Earthworks Ethos has its own ball joint, so I've got like double ball joint here, which is overkill. If you don't have a mic with a ball joint, then having one on the end of the mic arm makes positioning the mic very simple. It has a very clean look, and I really appreciate that. That's one of the reasons that I really like this Gator Frameworks boom arm, despite some of its deficiencies. Having an integrated cable is really nice in terms of how it looks on camera and looks in your room. And same thing with this Maono BA92. Looks really slick. I like how it folds up really small and out of the way, doesn't get in the way of any of my monitors, my television, etc. It has a pretty decent reach. This desk, I can't remember how long this desk is, 60 inches, but it easily covers half of that desk surface. So even though it's mounted a little bit off to the back of it, I have no problem positioning this in front of me to look at cameras that are on the opposite side, up the opposite corner of the desk, essentially. And lastly, the clamp is positioned over the top of the table surface, which is as God intended it. That is one of the major flaws of this Gator Frameworks, where the clamp is over the edge of the desk. This is much more stable and secure. You won't have to worry about this getting loose and wobbling or, heaven forbid, falling off the table or the desk. So overall, I think this is a really nice option. It's going to be a little bit less expensive than the Elgato low profile arm, and I think it has a couple of decent improvements. I hope that video was helpful in maybe clearing up some of your, I don't know, worry about choosing the right type of arm. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And as always, I appreciate you watching the video, and maybe I'll see you in another one.